Alright guys, this is a follow-up videos to the affirmative action video that I have posted recently. That video was the longer version that's very ranty, and it's just to give me a quick response to some people who might be subscribed to my channel, following me to see my view on affirmative action so I could clear things up. This video is going to be shorter, and if it is not shorter, I'm going to delete it and keep retaking it. So don't mind the sweatiness. I'm out chasing excellent because chasing excellent is what I preach. And I just went for a 3-mile run again after I finished lifting weights. So let's go back into affirmative action and to clarify. And this is going to be more statistics wise type video, and I'm not probably going to go into ranty and opinion as much. So the statistics of how affirmative action work is that a lot of people in the media and the liberal establishments are misconstruing and using the sleight of hand tactics to kind of show the statistics that doesn't show the whole picture, right? They'll show statistics of Asian making 5% of the population but make up 22% of Harvard admissions, right? So there's plenty of Asian there, so there's more Asian there, but it kind of a sleight of hand tactics. They don't look at how the likelihood of an Asian making a certain type of score versus a black individual versus a white individual versus a Latino individual with the same score getting in, the likelihood of them getting in by race. So and if you don't know by now, Asian have a culture of higher education. If you're raised in an Asian household in the United States, you are pushed and pushed and pushed to get higher and higher education, to go to the top elite school. It's all about the prestige. It's all about us coming from nothing and now we're at the top, right? So that's why a lot of Asians tend to gravitate toward higher learning, higher education, more elite schools. So now let's go into the statistics that I would like to talk about, right? And this is the admission rate or the admissions probability of you as an individual based on race if you get a certain amount of score. So if you let's look at by race, at if you are at the top 10%, and I just look at the statistics so it's true. If you are at the top 10% of individual student as an Asian, if you are at the top 10% on your SAT score and your GPA score equivalent, you have a 12.7% chance of getting admitted to Harvard. Now, when I say Harvard, this statistics is very, very similar when it comes to Ivy League and an elite school across the board. So you have a 12.7% chance as an Asian. Now, when you are a white individual, you have a 15.1% chance of getting in if you are top 10% of students, right? Now, if you're Latino and you're top 10% of the percentile of student, then you will have a 31% chance of getting in. And if you are a black student at the top 10%, you have a 56% chance of getting in. So you have more likelihood of getting in than you are not at the top 10% tile, right? And what really, really is concerning is if you're just like the 4-tier student, as in you make better score than 40% of the students. So you're like the top 40%. So you're like about the 60%. So like you're a 6 out of 10, right? You're above average, but you're not so stellar. If you are a Asian, you have less than 1% chance of getting in, having that stats. If you are a white individual, you have less than 2%. If you're a Latino, you have less than 5%. And if you are a black individual, you have a 12.8% chance of getting into Harvard. So if you look at the statistics, you are more likely to get in as a black individual at the tier 4 students, at the top 40%, just slightly above average, than if you are an Asian at the top 10% of students in the entire country, right? And now we are looking at students with the same score, right? Like when we're looking at the top 10%, we're talking about top 10%. They all have the same score, And when you look at the 40 percentile, people in the 40 percentile with all the same score throughout the races, right? So this is something that should concern you, right? And this is something that the media is not talking about, right? Because it's all about telling you that you are misinformed, you are not mindful, and you are not accommodating, and you're ignorant, right? But they don't tell you the true statistics of how affirmative action hurt individual. And see, the thing with affirmative action is that it put individual into groups of races, right? Instead of looking at the individual as the individual themselves, as the applicant. Having a colorblind admission just should be the best. And when you come into like higher education now, like I talked to you about last video, is that if you have, if you go into undergrad school and you don't get in, whatever, right? You can, like, if you're a top Asian student, you don't get in, okay, whatever. You can go to another school, you can go to a community college, you can go to a state school. You can still probably do well. You study really well, you can prove yourself, and you can get into a very elite school. That's what I did, right? So a little backstory about myself. I actually graduated from a community college with an associate in physics. Then I went to Liberty University, which is kind of like a little bigger Christian school, and I got a bachelor in physics. I got a 3.9 GPA, and with that GPA, I could prove myself, and I got myself into Johns Hopkins University for engineering. So that's where I'm going right now, but it's a little on pause because I'm working right now. So eventually I'm planning on, once I learn my job, I plan on doing it on the side. But I don't want to make this video too long. But this comes to my next point, is that affirmative action tend to hurt the people who it's supposed to help. Like these black individuals or these minority individuals who got in because of affirmative action. And now let me make something clear. If you have the score and you can compete with the Asians and you should be there, right? But what I'm talking about is the individual who got into these elite school solely based on affirmative action. They have scores that would not allow them to get into the school to begin with, and they and they got in anyways, right? If they were another race and they were to apply, they would not get in, right? That's the people I would be talking about, the students I would be talking about. It hurts them a lot because when they go into these school, they can't compete with the top tier students, that the 1% of Asian, the top 1% of Asian, the top 2% of a white individual, and then they go into these school because of affirmative action, and even though they're maybe the top 10% of individual, they can't compete with the top 1% of the 1% of the Asians. And these elite school, they tend to make the exam a little harder, they make the test a little harder, they make the homework a little harder, so that they could challenge these top tier students. But then you go there and these students tend to be at the bottom 20% of the class, and a lot of time they have to be forced to switch to a different degree that they didn't really even want to, the degree that's not in STEM, that probably won't do as much, and they are going to just because they just want that name, right? And these these students would have done very, very, very well in a smaller school that they could have gotten into, right? And let's go back to the point that I didn't finish, which is that it's with these, with these undergraduates degree and stuff like that, it's okay, you can switch to a different school that's, is not as competitive to get into. But the problem is when you're looking at like these professional degree in the graduate level, you can't do that because they're very well regulated. There's not a lot of school that will offer that kind of position, and those program that I'm talking about is your MD, your DO, your professional doctorate degree, like your law school. And there are only a handful of these schools, and it's very, very competitive. And because of affirmative action, is taking slots from qualified applicant that's very competitive to give it to people who are less competitive, and have them come in instead. Now, I know a lot of people will say, well, these people who got in because of affirmative action, they still have to qualify to be in these schools. Now, you need to understand that to qualify to be in Harvard, all you need is a high school diploma, and you have just already taken the MCAT. There's no score requirement, but there's an unspoken rule of if you don't have a certain score, you wouldn't get in. So do you think someone with a 2.0 or GRE, off the bat, no other like training, should be able to get into Harvard, you know, and compete with people who are at the top of the top of the top, you know, people? And no, of course not. You know, that's ridiculous, right? Like, and we're talking about like medical school. Like medical school don't have a requirement on the MCATs either. Sometimes there's a 500 like, you know, a 500 score on your MCATs, which is not very high, or a 400 on your MCAT, which is just like the minimum score. All you need to do is take the MCATs. You have to have some prerequisite classes, and you have a 2.0 GPA, right? Do you think those people should be able to get into medical school and compete with the best of the best of the best, right? That's the bare minimum qualification, right? So when you listen to the media and they said, oh, these guys all qualified to be there, you know, qualification score versus the competitive score is two completely different score, or the mission score. So, and a lot of these schools, they'll set their qualification score a little bit lower, too, so that they could have more applicants applying, you know, to begin with. So you need to think into the whole picture, and don't let the media like lie to you and mislead you into this kind of process. I don't think that having a meritocracy system is going to be any more damaging to a certain race. Is not going to be, because if a black individual would like to be in Harvard or go to medical school, then they just need to study just as hard and get the same score that Asians have to do, right? And a lot of people have a lot of argument like, well, people who are rich can buy their way in. Now, I don't believe that. I don't believe in that, right? I don't think that people should be able to buy it. I think people who get into medical school should get in based on their merits only, right? Based on their MCAT score and based on their GPA. Because the only thing that I really care about a doctor is how well of a doctor you are, how good at being a doctor are you, how smart you are, how much information you can memorize in medicine and stuff like that. Is not about, oh, you know, how diverse they are. Like the next time you go fly on a plane, like, do you ask to yourself, oh, I hope I have a diverse pilot, or do you ask to yourself, oh, I hope my pilot is competent, right? It's about competency. It's not about race or diversity, right? And that's how this system should be. It should be a meritocracy where it's colorblind. The MCAT is colorblind because you're just taking a test. Now, if these individuals can't get in, there's other type school like program that you could go in as well. Like, you know, less competitive program that they can still pursue their dream. So this is my thought on it. And I know this video have gone pretty long already, so I should stop it. And yeah, if you have any agreement, disagreement, comment below. I think I provide pretty much most of the statistics that I have to make. And I just don't like these shameful language that they're giving us Asian, like as conservative, like on the media, saying that we're ignorant and we're not mindful because of this and that. They're just not looking at the full picture, and they're doing it purposely. There is a sleight of hand type of statistic cherry pick. All right, bye guys.